to us each day, Lord. As we come in a session like this, Lord, it is an important opportunity for us to discuss how we, as Justice of the Peace and members of the team at the Ministry of Justice, can help to bring access to justice to every person in this country, dear God. We pray for this presentation that it will be edifying and that those who came with questions will somehow find answers to those questions. We pray, Lord, for this ministry and for those who lead this ministry at this critical point in the development of this country. We pray, Lord, that the main goal will remain important to all of us and that we continue to serve with honesty and integrity. We pray, God, that you cover each and every person on this platform and that everything will go smoothly to your honor and to your glory. These and other mercies we ask. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, Ms. Lancaster. Just of note, we're actually streaming live, so in case there are persons who may be trying to get into WebEx and having a challenge, you can utilize the streaming live through the PBCJ.org live stream. Though you may not be able to engage with us as directly as you would through WebEx, we encourage persons who will be having a challenge with the WebEx system to utilize that for I know, welcome for Honorable Minister, Honorable Delroy Chuck. He'll be bringing remarks to the session. Minister Chuck. Minister Chuck, are you able to unmute? Okay, I think Minister might be having.
All right, I think I was able to get myself. You had to unmute me. So can you hear me now?
Yes, we can, Minister. Thank you very much for joining.
Wonderful. It won't be very long. I certainly would like to welcome and thank all the JPs who have joined, and to indicate that this is one of the first public exposure for new public defender, Mrs. Cameron Reed Cameron, and we really would like to thank her for agreeing to participate and to provide the information on the role and function of the public defender. This is one in a many series that we are having, and I hope that all of you who are participating, that as Mrs. Cameron speaks, if you have questions, you can put the questions on the chat, but we won't allow you to interact until after she has completed her presentation. But if you have questions, you can put them in, and the staff will collate all the questions and then bring them to Mrs. Cameron's attention immediately after she makes her presentation. May I just say that the Public Defender is a commission of Parliament, a very important commission. It initially started out as a parliamentary ombudsman, and the main function really is to assist the citizens of this country to get better service from the public sector. Where they have a problem with the public sector, then matters can be brought to the office, and they will really bring the matter to the attention of the head of departments across the public sector. But more importantly, we provided for the Office of the Public Defender to protect the human rights and the constitutional rights of our citizens. Any person has their human and constitutional rights in any way, infringed, then the Office of the Public Defender has that burden and obligation to assist the citizens of the country to ensure that these rights are redressed, and where appropriate, that compensation should be awarded. So the functions are quite wide, and I have no doubt that our new public defender will outline in greater details how the citizens of this country can get in touch with her office, what are the areas in which she's able to assist. And this is where, Justice of the Peace, you will be armed with the necessary information so you can assist the citizens across Jamaica in utilizing the office of the public defender. So I'm going to leave it to Mrs. Reed Cameron to make the presentation and outline in details how you can function and work with the office to ensure that our people are basically protected, or their human and constitutional rights are protected, and that they get the best service from the public sector. Thank you, Mrs. Oliphant. So those are my opening remarks. After a question and answer, I will return, and if questions are put to me, I will be able to respond.
Thank you very much, Minister. I see the numbers are increasing, and the persons who are coming on at this time are coming on at the right time. It's my pleasure to introduce Mrs. Reed Cameron, KC. Mrs. Reed Cameron was sworn in as our public defender on the 1st of September, 2022 at King's House by the Governor General, His Excellency, the Most Honorable Sir Patrick Allen. Mrs. Reed Cameron is the second female to be appointed to the position, and she previously served as the Deputy Director of Public Prosecutions before she entered private practice in 1996. She is lead attorney at Caroline Reed and Company, and we're really looking forward to the insight that she will bring to us in relation to the office of the public defender. Mrs. Reed Cameron, over to you.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Let me thank you for your expression of interest in the work of the Office of the Public Defender. And having sat and listened to the Honorable Minister Chuck, I am convinced that there's not much more that I need to say. But I am nonetheless going to take on the task of trying to tell you a few things that you may very well not know. So, over the past couple of decades, we have seen what are called commissions of parliament introduced into our landscape. And currently, there are, I believe, 6 commissions of parliament that are currently in existence. We have the Political Ombudsman, we have the Integrity Commission, we have the Electoral Commission, we have the Independent Commission of Investigations, we have the Office of the Public Defender. So I stand corrected. We have 5 commissions. And the Office of the Public Defender was the first such commission of parliament. We were formerly known as the Parliamentary Ombudsman, and that office was established by law in 1978. So the Parliamentary Ombudsman was at that time a relatively new concept, and it had ancient beginnings. And I am told that the word ombudsman has its origins in Sweden, where the institution of ombudsman was first introduced in or around 1809. And the word ombudsman in the Swedish language, more or less, having been given a rough translation, means grievance person. So, in Jamaica, in the year 2000, our Ombudsman Act was repealed, and it was replaced by the Public Defender Interim Act. And under this legislation, the Office of the Public Defender was created, and the powers of the Ombudsman, who preceded the Public Defender, were given to the Public Defender. And in addition to that, there were more statutory duties created to protect human rights. So the Ombudsman is now called the Public Defender, with new duties to protect human rights of our citizens. And ladies and gentlemen, might I indicate to you that when I took an oath of office, I took an oath similar to the one that you all took when you were all being commissioned as justices of the peace. So I took the oath of allegiance, and I swore to be faithful and bear true allegiance to Jamaica, and to uphold and defend the Constitution and the laws of Jamaica, and that I would conscientiously and impartially discharge my responsibilities to the people of Jamaica. Sounds familiar, ladies and gentlemen? I also took an oath that I will well and truly serve the people of Jamaica in the office of Public Defender, and that I would do right by all manner of people after the laws and usages of Jamaica, without fear or favor, affection or ill will. So you and I are partners in that we both took oaths that bind us to uphold our Constitution, and we also took an oath committing us to serving the people of Jamaica and administering the laws of Jamaica, the laws and usages of Jamaica. So, ladies and gentlemen, you are looking at the new Public Defender. So, let me tell you what I have learned and what it is that I do. What it is that I do pursuant to the legislation that created my office. As I indicated before, the Public Defender Interim Act retained all the powers of the Ombudsman in the Public Defender, and also entrusted more duties and responsibilities in the Public Defender. So, in particular, my role and responsibilities are documented in law. And in particular, Section 4 of the legislation basically says, and I'm trying to find it so that I don't mislead you, that the Public Defender, for the purpose of protecting and enforcing the rights of citizens, there is hereby established a Commission of Parliament which shall be known as the Public Defender. That's what has created my office. Now, in terms of what I do, that can be found in Section 13 of the legislation. And I'm going to touch that aspect of the law with you step by step. But before doing so, I need to make one thing clear. The nomenclature, Public Defender, is not only a name that is used in Jamaica, but it is used elsewhere. It is, for instance, used in the United States. And because it is being used in different countries, people tend to assume that public defender is one and the same wherever you are. So let me, before going any further, advise you that the public defender in this jurisdiction is not to be confused with the public defender in North, South, or Central America. The public defender in those jurisdictions exists for providing legal representation to those who are indigent or who cannot afford legal representation in criminal matters. As it relates to Jamaica, we do have organizations that assist in that regard. For example, the Legal Aid Council. So do not please confuse the public defender here in this jurisdiction with the public defender in the United States, for example, because we are not designed to fulfill or to assist as it relates to providing legal representation in criminal matters. Our mandate is completely different, and we exist by virtue of the law that I just named, the Public Defender Interim Act, and Section 13 is what defines what we do. So, the public defender in this jurisdiction shall investigate any action where there are complaints laid, for example, complaining about public or state authorities and the treatment that they meet to the members of the public, maladministration generally. If I were to read the law to you, in particular, it says that we may investigate that any person or body of persons has sustained injustice as a result of any action taken by any authority or an officer or member of such authority in the exercise of the administrative functions of that authority. We can also investigate and take on matters where we are of the view or the opinion that any citizen has suffered, is suffering, or is likely to suffer an infringement of his or her constitutional rights as a result of any action taken by any authority or an officer or member of that authority. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that is a mouthful, but let me break it down for you. We investigate complaints. We investigate allegations where someone or a group of persons has sustained injustice arising from the performance of an administrative function. So therefore, for example, if there is somebody, a state body, a government body, for example, a ministry, a department of government, an agency of government who has a power to exercise in the form of, say, for example, making a decision or making a determination, if it is in the process of making that decision or making that determination, persons, they do the wrong thing, they take into account the wrong considerations, and persons end up sustaining an injustice arising from the performance of that administrative function, the public defender can intervene and investigate once a complaint has been made. If there is a complaint or an allegation where someone is likely to suffer an infringement of his or her constitutional rights as a result of any action that has been taken by an authority, a member or officer of an authority, and that authority or person working for that authority has to be within the context of a ministry, a department of government, an agency of government, a municipal corporation, for example, statutory body or statutory authority, or companies registered under the Companies Act in which government or an agency of government holds not less than 51% of the ordinary shares. In that context, once somebody or that authority takes an action, the result of which is that person's rights are infringed or are about to be infringed or are being infringed, then the public defender can intervene and investigate and seek to have a resolution brought to the situation with which it is confronted. So note, ladies and gentlemen, the words performance and action. These are the words that define our jurisdiction. We treat with only government, or should I say statutory bodies or statutory agencies, and it is only within that context that we exercise our power or what the legislation has authorized us to do. There are some things that we cannot intervene in, although they relate to government entities, and the legislation is very, very clear. So, for example, the same section 13, those of you who would care to research and to read once this exposure is through, section 13, subsection 2, has identified that, for example, if a court makes a decision, there is no way that you can have the public defender intervene or investigate within that context. Any action that is done with respect to orders or directions to the Jamaica Defense Force or members thereof, or any proceedings under the Defense Act, we can't intervene in that. Any action that, say, for example, the Minister of Justice may take in relation to the extradition of an individual, we can't intervene in that. Any decision of the Service Commission relating to the appointment, removal, and disciplinary control of any person, we cannot intervene in that. Any determination as it relates to the granting of honors, awards, and privileges under the National Honors and Awards Act, we can't intervene in that. So our mandate is clear. We deal with maladministration generally within statutory bodies, ministries, municipal councils, and so on. And we also deal with breaches of constitutional rights once it is a situation that finds its genesis in the actions of a statutory body, a municipal corporation, a government ministry, or a company in which the government has more than 51% of the shares. So we are limited in scope, but nonetheless there to try and assist all persons who need our help when they are the recipient of service from these government agencies which do not accord with what is right and which result in an injustice being meted out to you. Having said that, and I take it you recognize that I'm trying to put in short form a lot of what the legislation, what obtains, a lot of what is obtained under the legislation. I'm trying to put it in short form and hopefully an understandable form. So let's just say, for argument's sake, you have a problem. You have a problem with a government organization. Once it is, you engage the Office of the Public Defender. It is a situation where we would investigate, and there are many things that can flow from that process, because at the end of that process, we would have come to some sort of conclusion, and there are many results that can flow from that conclusion. So, for example, we may be able to assist in getting compensation for somebody who has been wronged from the agency that has caused the wrong. We would be able to do a review and make recommendations to the agency that has caused the wrong or is in the process of causing a wrong, so that the possibility is that their systems can be addressed, can be adjusted so that other persons do not suffer a wrong. It could be that we make recommendations to Parliament, because after all, we are a commission of Parliament, whereby we could make recommendations for them to maybe pass regulations or pass legislation or something coming from the legislature that could cure the problem or certainly ameliorate the situation so that it does not happen to other persons. I always have that in the back of my mind, in the sense that although there is an individual before me with a problem, in trying to assist that individual, I also have to bear in mind the agency that is responsible for causing that individual distress, so that if it is, we can do an audit of their systems, making, of course, the systems transparent, and therefore making recommendations that will improve those systems. Then it is my responsibility to do that. And the only way we'll be able to do that kind of audit, to do that kind of review, to do that kind of assessment, and to do that kind of recommending is only when you come to us and you lodge with us a complaint or make allegations that will cause us to intervene and to investigate. So how is it that complaints and investigations are made? By law, ladies and gentlemen, complaints against authorities or any officer of an authority are to be made in writing. In compelling cases, sometimes we accept oral complaints, especially especially where the liberty of the subject is concerned. However, according to the law, you are required to make your complaint in writing. We do have offices located in 3 areas of the island of Jamaica. I'm speaking to you right now from the office of the public defender at 22 to 24 Duke Street. We have an office in Manchester, which serves several parishes that side of the world, and they are at Shop 10G Annex Plaza, 7th Caledonia Road. And we also have an office in Montego Bay along Creek Street, if my memory serves me correctly. I do not know the exact number. I beg your pardon, it's not Creek Street, it is Claver Avenue, Unit 18 at 4 St. Claver Avenue in Montego Bay. And we are in the directory. We are also on social media. We are on Instagram. We are on Facebook. And we do have email addresses. So there is no reason why persons who have an issue would not be able to communicate with us, and you lodge your complaint. Now, having lodged the complaint, ladies and gentlemen, we make a decision here as to whether or not we are going to undertake the investigation. It is not automatic because, as you have heard, our role and function is defined by legislation. And therefore, it is from that legislation that we derive our jurisdiction. So once the complaint has been made, we will have to look at it and determine whether or not we have the jurisdiction to mount an investigation in that context or in the context of the complaint that has been lodged. And once we have made the determination that we do have jurisdiction to treat with it, then we have investigators here. We have a director of investigations who you heard being mentioned. Her name is Mrs. Kayla Beckford Harrison, whose name you heard earlier when the introductions were being done. And she assigns persons to undertake the investigations. Investigations usually start with the allegations that have been made being sent to the person or the authority against whom or which the allegations have been made, inviting them to comment on the allegations. Once we receive that response, it assists us in determining where it is we go to amass information, gather information, and make our determination. In the process of doing that kind of investigation and in the process of interacting with the authority in question, who is the source of the citizens' distress, there may be many avenues that can be pursued, including mediation, including resolution being sought to the immediate problem. And the long and short of it is that we tend to get results, or we try to get results that will assist the persons who have complained. But again, I say, we also try to treat with the general arrangement as it relates to the authority that is concerned, so that we can make recommendations so that another citizen will not engage, will not suffer the same issues that the complainant who has come to us has suffered. So, having done that, we can, ladies and gentlemen, I should point out too that there are times when we come across matters which usually are a lot bigger than the public defender can handle in terms of bringing resolution to it. In other words, there are some matters that come across our desk which requires the intervention of the court, and it is only there that resolution can be had. In those circumstances, once we have conducted our investigations and we see by virtue of the mandate that we have in the statute that this mandate is borne out, and we are of the view that resolution can only be found in the courts of Jamaica, we tend to make that recommendation. And in circumstances where persons are not able to mount an action in the courts, in other words, they have challenges as it relates to financing legal action, we, from time to time, if the situation warrants it, we assist in that regard financially. That is one of the mandates that we have been given under the legislation. So from time to time, we do try to assist as it relates to persons seeking resolution, seeking answers in Her Majesty's courts. So, what are some of the things that people complain about? Some of the things that have passed our desk, some of the things that we think are serious enough that we take pause and we look at them and we try to assist. It could be as simple as when services take longer than they should from a government department. It could be, for example, when the systems in place for the administration of the particular service are faulty. It could be when there is unfair or inequitable treatment being meted out to an individual. It could be where the authority or persons acting on behalf of the authority ignore rules that govern the administration of the particular service that the authority offers, and rules are not being followed, or service is not being conducted in a manner that is right and befitting the organization, and that does not afford the individual who is to be benefiting from the service the dignity that that individual deserves. All of these are matters that we look into. All of these are complaints that are handled by us. They have been in the past, and we continue to do so. So, you walk in, you make a complaint, we look at it. Is it something that we can handle by virtue of the mandate that we have? Having determined that that is so, we take your complaint in writing, of course, and we treat with it. And we adopt our internal process, our internal procedure in treating with it. There are times too when in dealing with some of these organizations, we may have to flex a little muscle here or a little muscle there. We try not to, but we may need to, and sometimes we may have to issue summonses to have persons come in and give us the information that we need. We may have to exercise our power and visit the organization and inspect records and take what we want in an effort to get the information that we need to comply. It is not necessarily the best approach, but we do that if we have to. Now, natural justice, ladies and gentlemen, these principles, the principles of natural justice, touch and concern procedural fairness. And that procedural fairness runs throughout our processes that we engage in here. And not only as those principles relate to the complainant, but particularly as they relate to the authority against which the allegations have been made as well. So in the conduct of an inquiry, in the allegations made against an authority, we may require the officer of the authority or a member of the authority or any person who we believe have information to advance the investigation to attend before us here or before me and give us information, the information that we need. And where we intend to make any adverse comment against any authority or an officer as a matter of law, we are duty bound to provide the authority with a copy of our report and request comments from this authority before, or the individual, before making any final determination of the complaint, and certainly before publishing the report. Where somebody has been wronged or whose complaint we find is justified, it is our duty to seek redress for that complainant. And that redress can take many forms. For example, a simple apology might suffice in some instances. Compensation in other instances. And as I said before, we would also ask the authority to review its action and recommend alterations in law, rule, or regulations which has caused the injustice or the infringement of a constitutional right. And in other instances, we can submit a report to Parliament and have Parliament treat with it. So I've given you a mouthful. That's a lot to digest. And there is a lot more that can come from me as it relates to our role and function here at the Office of the Public Defender. But I want to keep it simple. Let us talk about you. Let us talk about the justices of the peace, and let us talk about what you do and how you relate to us here at the Office of the Public Defender. So, to start, you heard that we took the same oath. So you know we're serving the same people, we're serving the same constituents, and we're trying to achieve the same things. With the advent of the Justices of the Peace Act of 2018, a lot of the responsibilities that are attendant on you as functioning Justices of the Peace have been codified. Initially, a lot of your responsibilities were noted in the Justices of the Peace Jurisdiction Act, and that act dates as far back as 1848, 1850. But a lot of your responsibilities, which lay in that particular piece of legislation, were more the judicial functions that you perform. Now, many decades later, since the Justice of the Peace has been introduced in Jamaica and has evolved, you have been given more and more and more responsibility, which you perform adequately and admirably. Training is a part of your process. In other words, training is mandated by statute now in the Justices of the Peace Act of 2018. And each and every one of you would have passed through those 18 hours of training. And having gone through those 18 hours of training, you would have been exposed to the new paradigm within which you function. So let us put aside the judicial function, for example, which is more or less, for the most part, those of the lay magistrate. Let us talk about some of the other things that you do. Some of the other things that you do is, for example, you are required to give advice. You are required to undertake, in some instances, mediation. You are required to assist the constituents in the area in which you actually practice your craft as a justice of the peace in more ways than one. So let us, for example, talk about the simple role that you play in your little district, in your little space as an advisor. It is not expected, ladies and gentlemen, that you are going to give advice outside of your depth. It is not expected that you are going to take on responsibilities that you are not capable and competent to do. According to what has been taught, you are required to give counsel and advice to citizens in the community, to listen to and, where possible, help persons who experience various kinds of problems and seek the advice of a leader in the community. I always tell justices of the peace that you operate as the fingers on the hand. So when you are being designated the responsibility of advising persons, it is because you are the ones who are actually in the community. You are the ones who are on the ground and are in touch with the people. So therefore, for argument's sake, let us say somebody comes to you with a problem that smacks of maladministration. They complain to you, for example, one complaint that we used to get a lot of in the past. I can't say if it's still constant, but for example, I pay my money to a government agency for speedy service, and I don't get the speedy service. I'm supposed to get it in 4 days, the document in 4 days, and I want back my money, or I want back some of my money, or whatever the situation is. That clearly is a service which goes against the grain of the systems that they are putting out to the public as a service. And if somebody comes to you complaining about something like that, then the normal, natural thing that one would expect is that if they're not reaching anywhere with the demands that they're making from the authority to give them back their money or whatever the request is, then you would make recommendations that they visit with us and lodge their complaint with us so that we can treat with it. That is an example of some of the things that we treat with in this office. So right away, it is very clear. You are in touch with the people. You are interacting with them. You are the one who is required to give advice. And surely this would be very potent advice that you could give. So that is a situation where you and I are working together so that we can make a system transparent, we can improve on a system, and we can assist the complainant the person who is having the problem in resolving their issues. Another thing, another example, you are required as justices of the peace to be, for example, a part of a visiting committee to lockups. When visiting committees visit lockups, there are a lot of things that they are exposed to. It may be that you come across somebody there who has an issue as it relates to the liberty of the subject, which, by the way, those of you who are familiar with the Charter of Rights in your Constitution, you know that it is a right that is enshrined in your Charter of Rights. Freedom of movement, the liberty of the subject. It may be a situation where persons connected to what you have been exposed to have challenges as it relates to that situation. It may be they are not getting any food. There are so many problems that could arise as a result of that. Then you could assist possibly by referring those individuals to us so that we can treat with it. We have actually had a situation where we have been going, for example, into lockups. We went in the St. Anne area some months ago, and the interaction that we had with justices of the peace there in that particular parish, we were exposed to certain circumstances that we felt it necessary to treat with it because of how a particular one instance that has been brought to my attention, a particular individual was being treated with, and we managed to have that situation resolved. Those are the things that we treat with. Those are the things that will cause you and I to walk hand in hand in dealing with the system, in dealing with making situations transparent, and in improving the service and whatever else is on offer from our government or state agencies. We have had a number of things happening in recent times, which I'm not going to comment on publicly, but if it is that it is listed as a right within your Charter of Right that each and every one of us is entitled to, and that right is being breached by any state agency, then it is a situation that is ripe for investigation by the public defender. So it's very easy. We have made it easy. We are independent, or we try to be independent. We are supposed to be independent. We are independent. We try to be neutral in terms of the approach that we take to these investigations. And the long and short of it is that you being where you are, you being the fingers on the hand, you are the one who will come in contact with these issues and therefore make recommendations for persons to visit with us, and we see whether or not we can assist in resolving some of those issues. Having said all of that, ladies and gentlemen, I do not think that there is much more that I can offer as it relates to sensitizing you to what we do and the role that you play. So if it is that there are any questions, I'm assuming that there are many. I'm looking at Mrs. Harrison, and you must see her eyes. They are wide open because apparently I'm flooded with a few. So I'm going to try to deal with them one by one.
Carolyn, before you...
Priorities identified for action by the new public defender. This is very broad. I am not sure what it is asking, but in an effort to answer you, let me tell you this. I have come into an office and I am trying to find my way to my desk as it is. I have managed to find my way to my desk, and there are some visions that I have for this office which will make it more efficient, which will make it more which will make it treat with cases in a more expedient way. So for example, digitizing our systems so that you will be able to make your complaints online without having to come into the office. Digitizing so that if needs be, when the public wants information, they can go online and get that information that they want from this office online. Treating with the systems that are actually in this office to make us take a shorter time to do our investigations in an efficient manner, making ourselves more visible. And by the way, this particular engagement that I'm having with you, thanks to the Honorable Minister Delroy Chuck, is one such method that we're using to make the office much more visible, because I am slowly learning that a lot of persons are not aware of what we do and our existence. So efficiency with the matters, digitizing so that we can reach a lot more persons, clearing the backlogs that we have in terms of putting in place better systems so that that can be done. And in addition to all of that, being compliant with the Data Protection Act so that your data, my data, anybody who interacts with this office will be protected, and so that when the 2 years pass after the Data Protection Act has been implemented, which was implemented in December 2021, we will still be able to function in a way that meets the standard that the law has set, and we'll be able to offer you the services in an efficient and effective and expedient way. Clarify authority. Authority, as I said before, means any government agency that exercises administrative functions or that causes you or causes any citizen to suffer any injustice, whether it be constitutional or otherwise. And I named a few, I will name them again. Ministries, government ministries, departments of government, agencies of government, municipal corporations, statutory bodies or authorities, companies registered under the Companies Act, being a company in which the government or an agency of government holds not less than 51%. In other words, they are of the ordinary shares. In other words, they are the major shareholders of those companies. Can the OPD start judicial reviews? Judicial reviews, ladies and gentlemen, are matters for the courts. Those are matters which are treated with and ventilated in the Supreme Court of Judicature of Jamaica. No, we do not start judicial reviews. If it is that there are persons who have complained to us and we see from the circumstances that it is prudent that they have their matters ventilated in court, of which judicial review is one such avenue which would be open to them, we would of course make the recommendation, and counsel would have to be retained so that they can treat with those matters in court. We will try to assist as much as is possible in the circumstance where they are unable to treat with the financial obligations that are there. But once it is a situation where we see that as an appropriate remedy, then that's where we step in. But we do not start judicial reviews. Are you empowered to address issues dealing with another commission of parliament? No, we are not. Certainly as it relates to, for example, the Services Commission, which is another commission of parliament. If you were to look at section 13, subsection 2, which I had referred you to when I was speaking earlier, one of the items listed there is specific in that we are not allowed to treat with decision or action of a service commission relating to the appointment, removal, and the disciplinary control of any person. Why is the act an interim act? Ladies and gentlemen, my understanding is that when the legislation was being created, there were plans afoot to introduce the public defender being the protector of fundamental rights and freedoms as a part of the constitutional framework. In other words, the Charter of Fundamental Rights and Freedoms. The plan was to introduce the public defender as a part of that document, that constitution. From where I sit, I do not know what progress, if any, or any move is being made as it relates to that. But it is with that in mind that initially the creation of the public defender was done in this way. That is the creation of the Public Defender Interim Act. I can't speak anymore on that because I am not in the know. And in fact, that is a question that would best be posed to the legislature. Can an investigation take up to 2 years? That's a very loaded question. I have spent 2 weeks in this office, so certainly I'm not in a position to answer that with confidence. But what I do know is that I have seen some cases since I have been here which have taken some time, and the reason that the cases have taken some time, each situation turns on its own particular facts. So I can't speak to that. And this question actually is an unfair one. I can't answer that. There's another question. Executive agencies do not fall under central government. Does the Office of Public Defender still investigate? Yes, we do. The Kingston and St. Andrew Corporation or Municipal Corporation, for example, it does not fall under central government. But if it is that they run afoul of natural justice and their administrative responsibilities, these are matters that we can take on. And that is an example of an organization that does not fall under central government. So the answer is yes. Moving on to the next question. I'm trying to get through as many as possible. If the Office of the Public Defender is to increase its scope of work, Would it be as a result of representation by the office or an act of parliament? What do you mean by the scope of work? Does it relate to the types of cases that we can deal with? Is that what this question is asking? Or does it mean the quantum of cases that we treat with? If it is a matter of quantum, then surely it doesn't need representation for that to happen. We can easily do that once it is we have streamlined our systems and once we have put in place management systems which can treat with the workload. If it is a matter of the type of work that we take in, then yes, the legislation would have to change so that we can thereby get jurisdiction to treat with these new matters or new scope of matters. All right. Any more questions, Ms. Harrison? Mrs. Harrison? Okay. I do not have any more. I don't have any more questions coming in to me now.
Okay,
So I think that is where I'm going to pause for now. Madam Moderator.
Yes. Are you hearing me?
It is over to you.
Okay. I'm not sure if everybody's able to hear me. There are a couple of raised hands. Perhaps we could treat with them.
Oh, I've just a moment, I've gotten 3 more. Do you issue writs of mandamus? That's the question that was asked. No, we do not issue writs of mandamus. Writs of mandamus are writs that are issued by the Supreme Court upon an application being made to it for the issuing of such a writ. Explain which entities, bodies get defined as an authority. I think I've dealt with that already, and I'm not going to do it again. Do you investigate matters involving the private sector? Ordinarily, no. As I stated before, our mandate touches and concerns bodies which are government-based, which fall, or if it is that there is any hint of a private sector, it must be an organization in which the government of Jamaica owns not less than 51%. So that's it for me. I don't think I can assist you any further.
Yes.
Madam
So
co-host.
recommendation that had come in, or a query as to whether the standard form document could be used to refer matters to the ODP. I'm not sure if there is an existing document that is utilized, or perhaps this is something that your office could consider to facilitate.
There is a document on our website, which if you pay us a visit, you will see that it facilitates something that could assist with the initiating of the process.
Yeah. Yes. Okay, I see a couple of hands. This is not quickly done. I'm not sure. I don't see a name for that gentleman. Okay. Mr. Gray?
Good evening. I don't know if I'm now unmuted.
Yes, you are.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Thanks for a great presentation. It was well delivered. I had initially posted a question about that form.
About what?
JP, the form, the simple form that can be filled out.
Yeah.
For some of us who operate out in the countryside, you will find that you have some older folks or persons who are unable to provide the information for themselves, and you have to write it for them. So it's asking whether or not we could have a form that we download, we keep with us. So when there's an issue, we can fill it out and then submit it to your regional office.
Say no more. The document that I was referring to you that is on our website is one that can be downloaded and you can fill it out and forward it to us.
Okay, thank you. My second question has to do with the jail visits, where in a number of cases where there are discrepancies, we usually refer them to the office of the custodian to give him an opportunity to respond to the situation and to coordinate with the officers in charge of the station to try and find a resolution before it is referred. Are you suggesting that that process is truncated?
No, 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 no. I'm not suggesting that. As a matter of fact, I have in the past, because I do train justices of the peace from time to time, and in fact, that is the modus operandi that I have recommended that justices of the peace undertake so as to have the situation managed and kept controlled within the context of the justice of the peace. But the fact is that we are available as well. And if it is that you make that referral to your custodian and he thinks that he cannot bring resolution to the situation and he needs assistance, then surely he can make the decision to visit with us or to make the referral to us.
Thank you very much.
I saw some other questions.
Okay, I think we had Mr. Andrew Smith, and then I'm going to hand over. I mean, it's been very informative. I think perhaps future, if we have other questions, perhaps that could be put directly, Madam Public Defender, to your office. But we'll ask Mr. Smith to respond, and then we'll go back to Minister Chuck. You had a query, Mr. Smith, Andrew Smith? No? All right. We don't see any other hands in the chat, and so Minister Chuck, perhaps we could hand back over to you.
Okay, I won't be long. I think
Hello.
will agree that Carolyn Reed Cameron, I can't, I have to call her Carolyn.
And that's good enough.
And the new public defender, you did an outstanding job, Carolyn.
Thank you.
All the justices of the peace, everyone, you should see some of their comments. They all felt the presentation was excellent. It's a pity that we didn't have, 2,000 people, but I'm sure, another time we'll get you to do some more presentations. Justice of the Peace, what you should notice from the presentation is that the Office of the Public Defender is the oversight body of the public sector. Bear that in mind. It is the oversight body of the public sector. When the public sector is inefficient, when they engage in maladministration, when they do anything wrong, you can report it to the public defender and as the oversight body. And it is a pity that more Jamaicans, rather than complaining, they don't really take the matter to the public defender, so the public defender's office can bring it to the attention of the heads of department so that matters can be corrected. JPs, I am sure you were well informed and you were edified this evening. Please, I beg all of you, kindly make use of the information and see how best you can assist the public defender as we try to make the public sector more efficient, more civil, more dignified, and to deliver service in a first-class manner. At the Ministry of Justice, we're trying to do so. You have 888 Justice. If you see we are doing anything wrong or inefficient, 888 Justice, or you can call the public defender who will take us to task. So I want to thank you again, Cameron. I'm sorry, Carolyn, and thank everyone who stayed on with us. Please, Mrs. Oliphant has an announcement to make, and then we will sign off. Renee?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Minister. Again, thank you very much, Public Defender. Just 2 points for you to note. You, or if there are persons who missed this session, They can be visited at the YouTube sites for both the Ministry of Justice and the PBCJ. And also just a reminder that on the 29th of September, the launch of the GOJ JP email accounts is being done. We encourage you all to join us at that time, and also to invite any other JPs just to the piece who you think might be able to join us. So that's the 29th of September. Look out for the notifications coming out of the offices of the custodies. Again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. We wish our public defender all the best during her tenure in that office, and we look forward to all of the work and all of the wonderful things that are going to be coming out of the Office of the Public Defender going forward. Thank you for joining us. Stay safe, and all the best for the rest of the evening. Everything just